Hello and welcome to this tutorial on how to use color pencils, or just a very basic way of coloring. In my previous video I showed you how to draw Baby Yoda using geometric shapes, and in this following video I'm going to show you 1. How I color it, and number 2, I'm going to describe my decision-making process in using color pencils. The first decision that I have to make is about his skin. One look at his reference photo tells me that I will need a medium green, a dark green, and then overall some blue. And all of this, knowing how to do all of this, how to make these decisions on what colors to choose, sometimes takes a level of experimentation. So sometimes you will make mistakes. That's why I tell you to test it on the back of the paper. And sometimes it will just not work out. For that purpose, sometimes I like to make even 1 or 2 drawings of the same thing so that in one I can mess around and I can make all the mistakes and I can forgive myself for it. And in the last one, that will be the final drawing and I can just do my better job over there. Besides experimenting and not being afraid of making mistakes, you also have to be able to color evenly. In this case, you get to see how I'm coloring in the same direction, and I'm going to try to stick to this as much as possible throughout the whole face. And I'm going to limit the amount of empty white spaces that I'm going to leave between each of those lines. Also, the amount of pressure that I have on the pencil is about the same throughout. So you're not going to see a darker area right now. I'm just trying to color everything evenly, as much as possible. It's going to be an even coat of green throughout the face, hands, and fingers. Now, if you can ignore the TV in the background, then great. Thank you so much for doing that. Now I'm coloring across. I am doing what is called cross-hatching, because I am coloring across it at a 90-degree angle, or we can also say perpendicularly. And I'm going to be doing that in the same way, with the same amount of pressure and in the same direction. And the result is that it's going to give it some texture, and it's going to change the direction at which I was going in. So then people, when they look at my drawing, they will not be able to tell more or less. They will not be distracted by the first direction that I took in my coloring the first time. So by going in a different way, they will not be distracted by those lines. Now with my darker green, I'm going to go over the darker areas in the photo. I'm not going to trace every line with pencil that I did, just some of them. And again, this is going to take a lot of trial and error, and it's going to take a lot of practice, because you do not want to trace every single line out there with green. You have to decide which ones will need to be like that. What helps me is to constantly look between the reference photo and my drawing and compare them. I have to look at where the light is. Where the light is where it's going to be at its lightest, and where the shadows are is where my darkest green will be at. Now for the eyes, I'm just going to trace first with black, and you'll notice that I also change where the light reflections are at. I drew 2 circles at the top of each eye, and I made sure that they were in the same height more or less on both of the eyes. I found that this was a little bit better than what I even had on the reference photo. So sometimes you will look at a reference photo and maybe you will want to make choices that will change how you see something or how you draw it. And it will be just a little bit different from the reference photo, but it's because it's going to make everything easier to color or easier to understand once you see the final image. Right now you see me adding blue all over the face evenly. And that's because I want the skin to look a little bit more blue-green, aquamarine, turquoise, like, and it's a very different skin tone to achieve, and we may or may not think that I have achieved it, and I think that as long as it looks a little bit greenish, then I think I'm okay with that. Also, don't forget to trace with your dark green around some areas, the darker areas of the fingers, to give it some definition. Here is another choice that I have to make between shading the reference photo and my drawing. The tips of the fingers in the reference photo look a little bit pointy, like triangular even, but remember that when I want people to look at it, I want them to think of fingers. So I want that main idea. I'm not worrying so much about getting it perfect like in the reference photo. Once you get the hang of it, then it's pretty easy to take care of the ears. In this case, I'm using tan and red for the darker areas, especially where there will be some shadows or where it is the closest to the face. I'm going to use gray for the lip of the cup, and the inside of it, I want it to look different. It's going to have a different color, like maybe black or something else, because I want that lip to look thick. I want it to stand out from the inside of the cup. It might look like I'm using black for the inside of the cup and the exterior of it, but I'm actually using a very dark brown. Remember that if you were using black on the cup, it would draw attention away from the eyes themselves. So make sure that you take care of that it's a different color. And see, now that I'm adding actual black to the darkest areas of the cup, now you can see the difference of it. And remember, you will not be adding black everywhere. It just has to be to the darkest areas. Sometimes I like to draw the shape of the highlight or the shape of the shadow and then color inside of it right away. So that's what I'm going to do for this one section. I'm drawing the lightest parts with my lightest gray, and I would definitely advise against using pencil to shade it in. Pencil just looks so different from using color pencils. And when you put a something colored with pencil next to something colored with color pencil, it doesn't stand out as much. It just doesn't look as good. It looks like you were using something different. So I'm just kind of estimating what these shapes would look like. And then after that, I'm going to fill out the rest of it with a darker gray. Right now it's starting to look a whole lot better than in the middle of it. So every time you are in the middle of coloring something and you're not feeling so good about it, I would say don't give up. Actually wait until you finish the whole thing. Maybe then by the time it's finished, you will feel much better about it. Now I'm going lightly, very, very lightly with black over some areas, just the darkest areas, but not the whole line. It's just a portion of that line, and I'm trying to blend in that black. I'm using black right now, and I'm going over those darkest areas, and I'm being very picky where I'm placing that black color. Finally, I'm adding just some lines of black to split certain areas of the drawing. I want to separate certain parts of the ears from the nose, or from the clothing, from the skin. And that's about it. I hope that you have enjoyed this tutorial. I will see you again next time.